Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Cupid's Coach podcast. I'm your host, Julie Ferman, inviting you to transform me to we through the process of doing dating better and better and better. And that's why we do this podcast. Now, today I have a guest coming on for the second time. That means he was really good the first time, and we got so much great feedback that I've invited him back on again. He's my good friend, John Mitchell. He lives in Austin, Texas, and he has a company. You can find it online. It's called thinkitbeit.com. And I've been doing what John has been telling me to do for 2 years. And it's changed so much about my life and how I go about accomplishing things. It's really made an impact on my life. And every morning I wake up and I do what he taught me to do. So I'm sharing him with you. John Mitchell, welcome back to the program.
Hey, I love being here. You know, this is a tribute to you. Your podcast, when I was on last time, I got more people that responded to, what I was talking about. And, that's a tribute to you. I mean, you've got a very enlightened group.
It's been interesting when I had to figure out what I was going to call my company. It's always hard because you have to find a URL that hasn't been already used by somebody. And this was 24 years ago. And I found the URL Cupid's Coach. And I thought, I like it because it tells people it's love related. It's
Yeah.
about being the right person, but it also has the word coach in it because we both know, and most people listening know, that intellectually it looks like love needs to happen. We have ideas for how love's going to happen, not only how it's going to start, but how to sustain it. And it's an never-ending struggle and battle, not only for people who are out there dating, but also people in relationships experiencing those challenges. So one of the things I think is really cool about you, John, is that you're teaching this process to a bunch of athletes at the University of Texas. Tell us more about that.
Well, it's pretty fun. You want me to give you sort of the quick version of my story and how that evolved?
Tell us, for people who don't know you yet, give us the quick version of your story, how you came about doing Think It Be It, and then tell us about all those athletes you get to work with.
Okay. Well, basically, when I was 50, I just wasn't as successful as I thought I should be. And I had two goals in my life. One was make enough money so I didn't have to work, and the other one was to find the woman of my dreams. And so, at 50, I was falling short on both of them. And, on the money, I always did pretty well, made a couple $100,000 a year. But, and Julie, I know this sounds materialistic, but, at 50, I realized I had to start netting over $1 million a year to have the spectacular life I wanted. And then on the girl, at 50, I'd never been married. And, I really saw that finding that partner in life was more important than the money. So, two challenges at 50. And probably 3 months after I turned 50, a pearl of wisdom comes to me. Find the top book in the world on success and apply that book literally word for word to my life. And so I'm thinking, boy, that's a pretty good idea. And I remember, jumping out of bed and doing the research, and I discovered something amazing, that there is one book that has been read by 150 million people. And the next best-selling book has been on success, has been read by like 1/10 of that amount. And that book is Think and Grow Rich. And so I'm like, boy, this is perfect. I had no idea there was one book that was the top book on success by a factor of 10. And so I'm go out, I buy the book, I read the book, and then I discover the problem. It says there's a secret for success, but the author only gives us half of the secret. And so, Julie, I moped around for like 3 weeks and ultimately just had a little come to Jesus visit with myself and said, come on, John, man up, figure out the damn secret. And so I immersed myself in the book over 2 to 3 months and probably read it 20 times. And I figure out what the secret is, the full secret, and I developed a 12-minute a day technique to apply it. And so I started applying it to a new business I was starting in the reverse mortgage field. And suddenly my income starts doubling and doubling and doubling to where 4 years later, I was blessed to see my income go up by 25 times the 200 to 300 grand a year I was making the prior 20 years. And Julie, what was so cool was I could see why it was happening. I was just playing the game of life at a higher level. I could do things I could never do before. I had a level of control over myself beyond what I'd ever experienced. And I just became fascinated that you could take two key scientific principles and apply them to your life and so materially impact your success. And so, once I had enough money so I didn't have to work, I sold my company. I thought, well, I'm going to share this with the world. And I meet the former chancellor and president at the University of Texas. And he says, hey, you got to teach this at Texas, and why don't we teach it together? And that led to being introduced to the athletic director at the University of Texas, Cristo Conte. And he says, well, I want to learn this 12-minute a day technique. And so I teach it to him. And that led to becoming the mental coach for the 18 head coaches. And the latest iteration is now I have a class that teaches all of my methodology in the McComb School of Business, and with the idea of teaching it to all 550 athletes at the University of Texas. So that's sort of a long-winded explanation of my story and how I'm teaching the athletes.
All right. So, John, tell us a little bit more about how Think It, Be It works. 12 minutes a day. It's a meditation. You helped me create mine. Mine's different than yours. Tell us a little bit about how you go about creating this 12-minute, I call it a meditation. Maybe you call it something different.
Well, and let me explain the secret of Think and Grow Rich, and maybe the best way to do that is to tell you another sort of quick story. And this is pretty personal to me. There was a little more going on in my life at 50 than just feeling that scarcity of time. My mom was dying of pancreatic cancer. And so, like every day after work, I would go and hold her hand and love on her. And then I would go into the hospital parking lot and cry my eyes out for like 45 minutes. And this is going on every night. And Julie, obviously I was feeling the impending loss of my mom, but I knew there was something deeper going on because I never experienced this gut-wrenching crying for 45 minutes every day, and it's going on for weeks. And so what I realized, though, after a while, was that I felt like I was letting my mom down with my life because, my mom and dad gave me everything. They sent me to Jesuit High School in Dallas. They sent me to the University of Texas. Didn't have to pay for a thing. And, all I had was an average life. And I hated the average life because I just knew I was capable of so much more. And now in retrospect, I see that feeling of letting my mom down was like rocket fuel in causing me to go deeper into Think and Grow Rich than any other person on the planet ever had. And that's why I was able to figure out the secret when maybe other people couldn't. And so during this period of time, this is when I discovered the full secret of Think and Grow Rich. So I remember the night like it was yesterday. I go to the hospital, see my mom, and I love on her, and then I go in the parking lot, cry my eyes out. But Julie, this night felt different because it was snowing in Dallas, and it doesn't snow very often in Dallas. And so, as I'm driving home, I'm seeing the big snowflakes hitting my windshield, and I get home and I decide, well, I'm going to read some of Think and Grow Rich. So I grab the book and start reading it, and I read that your success in life comes down to your daily actions. The cumulative effect of your daily actions determine your success in each area of your life. And so I'm like, huh, I never thought of it like that. It's so simple, but I'm like, okay, I buy that. And then I read that 95% of your daily thoughts and actions are unconscious. I'm like, huh. Well, by now I'm tired and I'm ready to go to bed. So I wash my face and brush my teeth and lay down and start to go to sleep. But Julie, I just cannot stop thinking about that 95% of your daily thoughts and actions are unconscious. Because I saw, I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. If they're unconscious, you don't control the very thing that determines your success. And therefore, to have a higher level of success, you have to gain control over those unconscious daily actions. And I started seeing the profound ramifications of really understanding that fact. And and I realized this is truly an epiphany moment in my life. And I remember sort of sitting up in bed and seeing the snowflakes falling in my backyard. And as I'm looking at those snowflakes falling, then the full secret of thinking real rich basically comes to me. And that full secret is what you envision in detail with emotion on a daily basis is what shows up in your life. And let me say that again. What you envision in detail with emotion on a daily basis is what shows up in your life. And what that means is you take your life and you create immense clarity about it. Exactly the person you want to be, exactly what you want to accomplish, and precisely how you're going to achieve your clearly defined goals. And you get that clarity and you put it on a template that I created, and then you start feeding that to yourself every day, either listening to it or reading it. And after about 21 days, the science kicks in, and what you're feeding yourself starts showing up automatically without thinking in your daily thoughts and actions. And you're just playing the game of life at a higher level. So that's the secret.
Well, it's worked beautifully for me. Certain things have just sort of happened. Like, I always struggled with an extra 5, 7, 10 pounds, little by little, it's just been sort of coming off. I never had really disciplined myself to drink enough water. It sounds stupid, but it's really
Right,
important to do. And so it's part of my morning routine. And I get this much water in me before I even start my work day. And I'm
right,
doing my yoga every day. And I've got it recorded now so that I listen to it while I'm doing my yoga because, women are great multitaskers, right?
right,
And it's just been wonderful. And I do notice during the day when I get derailed over something and something challenging happens, the language comes back into my mind and it impacts how I choose to respond to something. So it's been really great. And I'm happy that I put it in my life. I want to thank you for teaching me all of this. It's
my
been beautiful.
pleasure.
Tell me more about how this helped you find Ginger, because you started doing this before you met Ginger, right?
Right, that's right. Well, I love telling this story. So as I'm, applying this to my life and realizing that finding a partner was more important than the money, I'm like, okay, let's get clarity here. What do I want? I wanted to describe in detail what my ideal person looked like, both physically and intellectually. And so, I like petite women. I like they have to be smart. They have to have a great sense of humor. They have to be confident. So I fleshed all that stuff out in terms of exactly what I wanted. And then I'm like, okay, who do I have to be to attract that girl? And so I articulated what that was. And then I'm like, okay, this thing's a numbers game. I get it. I wish it wasn't, but that's how it is. And so I developed, okay, how am I going to play the numbers? And what that really meant is, really having a way through matchmaking services of bringing lots of girls into my world. But what I was not going to do was spend time with ones that might have been cute, but really didn't fit. And because I was busy and I wanted to find a wife. And so when I would meet them, I would meet them. I wouldn't date them. I would meet them. And if they didn't fit the marriage category, that's the last time I'd see them. And, and so as I'm starting to do this within 2 years of this applying this methodology, I met Ginger, and she is everything I could have hoped for, and everything that was in my visualization.
What would you say as you look back on it were I always talk about these as key criteria, like what were the top 3 or 4 key criteria? You mentioned you needed somebody who was intelligent, competent, um, pretty sure that somewhere in there was, trustworthy, integrity, character,
Right,
honesty. And then the other element that I really find a couple of elements I find men really seek in women. One is the kindness component, kindness, considerate, compassionate, thoughtful. And then the other element is playful. There's got to be some play. There's got to be some
right,
fun. You guys are just big little boys.
yeah, right, yeah,
Yeah, fun. So were those elements on your must-have list?
absolutely, sure, sure, yeah, all those things were on my list.
And you could tell in that first date what would make somebody what would cause somebody not to get the second date? Like they didn't get the second date, they weren't marriage material for John Mitchell. What kinds of things do you remember that women did that caused them to not get the second date?
Well, I know this is maybe not. Um, I don't know what the word would be, but they had to be attractive. What can I tell you? I wanted them to be attractive. You can say, well, those not that important. Well, it is, and you can deny it all you want. And all I really wanted was they had to be fit and trim. I mean, Ginger was incredibly cute, but mainly fit and trim. If you're fit and trim, whether you're a man or a woman, you're 90% of there. And so that was it. And it's super important to me to have a great sense of humor. I love sense of humor. And one of the things I learned in relationships was you've got to like the person that you become and comes out when you're around them. I mean, you've got to love that person in you that comes out, as opposed to necessarily being so focused on loving them. You got to love the you that comes out first. And if she would draw my sense of humor out, then I was gonna, be drawn to her.
And it sounds like the thing that would definitely cause a woman not to get the second date with you is if they didn't have that trim, slender element. And you won't find me fighting men on the need to be attracted. And also about the fitness thing, women and men both. It's a lifestyle choice.
Yeah,
I'm guessing that you and Ginger don't drive through McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken very often.
not that often.
I do remember having some good cookies at your house, however.
Yes, I know. Well, we like sweets, but in moderation, my dear.
Yeah, yeah, very good. And part of my visualization that I do every morning has to do with what I eat, what I drink, how much water I drink, if I'm going to drink alcohol, what's the cap? It's so I've just noticed that also. I drink less, I eat better, just because I'm feeding myself this information every morning. It's very,
Well,
very interesting.
one thing I've come to appreciate is that there is a fundamental flaw in the success and human achievement field. And this flaw also exists in the sports psychology world that I work in as well. And the flaw is it doesn't actually make people all that much more successful. And the reason is the entire industry misses the fundamental concept that 95% of your daily thoughts and actions are unconscious. In fact, that was the most significant thing I ever learned in my life. And in retrospect, I see that understanding how the human mind works was the pivotal moment that my life went from good to spectacular. And and what happens in the success business is they say, well, you should use this strategy or that strategy. As an example, maybe one of the strategies would be focus on what moves the needle. Okay, great. Um, Say I'm a coach in the success business, and I say to you, Julie, focus on what moves the needle. Very conscious mind sort of stuff. So you're hearing it, you're going, yeah, that makes sense. I'm going to do it. Well, the problem is 95% of your daily thoughts and actions are unconscious. And so unless you're influencing the subconscious mind, which obviously controls your life, all that me telling you to focus on what moves the needle, all that does is in fact impacts your intentions, not your ability to do it. And that's the difference with what I'm teaching over everything else in the success business is I can make great strategies show up in your thoughts and actions automatically. And that's why, you're able to have more control over your eating and exercise. And as it relates to your business, if you're focused on what moves the needle and you're feeding what that is to yourself every day, when you get up and get going, you're innately now wired to focus on what moves the needle, and it overrides the biggest problem people have, which is being innately wired for survival, which causes us to be fear-based and reactive, which happens to be exactly the opposite of how we need to be if we want to be productive, creative, and happy. And so you have to override being wired for survival, and that's what this 12-minute a day technique does.
Well, it works because um, what moves the needle in my world in running my business, because I love the art of matchmaking and I love it more than the art of making a lot of money. So sometimes I forget to ask for the money. It's hilarious. And but what moves the needle, and because I'm tracking it now much better because I do
Right.
the system that you've taught me, is how many 30-minute phone calls I have with new people who've registered on my site, people I've never talked with before. How many of those do I do every month? That moves the needle. When those
Yeah.
people become coaching clients and we do that initial consultation together, wow, that's where everything starts happening. So orienting myself to continue making sure that I'm not missing chances to get those people that I really care about and want to know on that first call, on that Zoom consultation, which tells me everything. Are
Yeah.
they playing with a full deck or are they batshit crazy? I get to find out if they're looking to meet the type of person that I think they could naturally attract, or they're looking for an unnatural match, right? So there's something else I want to know about relationship. I love to ask people who have beautiful, successful relationships to talk about not only how lovely it is, but also the challenges. So I joked earlier about how I think of it as if you're single, maybe you got a headache. Once you're in a relationship, you're going to have a stomach ache. What are some of the real live challenges in being in relationship that you didn't have when you were a single guy? You had other things that were annoying that you would complain about, that you were frustrated with. Now you got a whole other set of things. How do you get through it? What are your pressure points and how do you manage them?
Well, I'll tell you, Julie, I've discovered something very interesting. And, our mutual friend, Jim Cathcart, has helped me on this. Um, you're familiar with the disc profile, right?
Yes.
And so, for the audience, the disc profile basically says that there's 4 distinct personality types, and they're based on whether you do things fast or slow, and whether you're people-oriented or task-oriented. And so, how this plays out is it's critically important to understand which of the disc profiles you are and what your significant other's profile is. And like I'm a D, which is sort of that CEO, take charge, I'm doing things fast and I'm task oriented. Well, Ginger is a C, and she's C sort of stands for conscientious. She's a perfectionist. She does things slow, and she's task oriented. And so, what I have discovered, and I taught this to my class. In fact, Jim came and taught this to my class a few months ago. Is before I learned this in our relationship, if Ginger was being slow, I'd go, babe, come on, let's go. And now I'm like, she's just processing information differently than I am. There's not a right or a wrong. And what happens is most people think that if their spouse doesn't see things the same way they do, that there's something wrong with their spouse. I mean, we're right. We're like, it's so obvious. Why can't you get this? Well, and I'll give you an example of how this played out and how it works to my advantage now. And of course, all this is in my visualization now. So we have a party for a Christmas party for all of my class. And, I had 36 students in my class. In fact, one of them was probably the most talked about 19-year-old in the country, Arch Manning. You know who Arch Manning is?
The name sounds very familiar. I'm not a sports person.
Well, he's big time quarterback. Anyway, so we had this Christmas party, and so as we're planning the Christmas party, Ginger goes, and keep in mind she's a perfectionist. She goes, we need to get new artificial jellyfish in our aquarium. Well, a year ago, I would have said, Ginge, this makes no sense. You're going to spend 2 hours jacking with it. They're not even going to notice the freaking jellyfish. Well, that was the old John Mitchell. The new John Mitchell goes, sure, I'm going to support Ginger being a perfectionist. That's how she operates. That's how she was born. If she wants to spend the time to get those jellyfish, I'm all for it. And so I now support her perfectionist vision, whatever that is, even though it may make no sense to me, it makes sense to her, and I respect her being her. And it has profoundly impacted our relationship. And of course, I can do that because I train my subconscious mind to do it. And it's powerful.
It's a beautiful example, and I have one too. Because of the visualization that I do every day that I have coming into my brain. I remember there was a day when Gil and I had some kind of friction. I don't remember what it was over. And we're doing a lot of work on our house, and we wanted to get a really good deal on the roof. We had to redo the roof. We had to do all the stucco, everything. And the bids were coming in for the roof, and it was a lot. And there was this one that was better than everyone else. And Gil says, if we pick this guy and he says yes, I told him I'd get him a cigar. And we live 25 minutes from town in Santa Fe. So I'm thinking, well, he's not going to go in and get the cigar, but I happened to go into town that day. And I thought, I think there's a cigar store here. And I looked it up, and sure enough, there it was. And I found a place to park, and I went in, and I had the experience of buying a cigar, which I've never done in my entire life. And when I brought it to Gil, what I did was I took a picture of myself with this cigar hanging out of my mouth, and I took a picture and I said, I found it. That little thing meant so much to him that I would support something that he wanted to do. And isn't that the nature of partnership?
Exactly.
It might not matter to me, but if it matters to him, can I cause it to happen? Can I put myself aside and do it for him because it matters. Isn't that the nature of partnership?
Absolutely. Well, here's a question for your audience. How do you create success? Just think about that. And when I ask that question to people, first of all, nobody's usually ever asked them that question. And they will stumble around for an answer. And oftentimes it becomes apparent to both me and to them that they don't really have a way of doing life. And then the second question, the more pertinent question, is I go, so how's that working? Well, usually not working that well, both in career, marriage, health. And what I see is that most people are just winging life. They don't have an actual way of doing life. And the effect is they continually recreate their life. And the reason that happens is because, and I alluded to this earlier, there's actually two problems we all have to overcome when we wake up each morning. The first one is overcoming being wired for survival and being, fear-based and reactive. And again, that was great 5,000 years ago, but it's the opposite of how you want to be if you want to be productive, creative, and happy. And then the other problem you have is we're innately oriented to the recent past. And so what happens is when we wake up each morning, we start thinking about our problems and recent slights, and those thoughts generate negative feelings, and those negative feelings generate more negative thoughts, and we get in this continual negative loop, and there's nothing pulling us forward to our desired life. And so that's why the solution is when you create the succinct articulation of your life and you feed that to yourself every day, that overrides being wired for survival and orients you to the desired life you want so that the right actions happen to create that life. And no doubt that example with the cigar is, because I know your visualization, one of the things you're articulating is to be thoughtful of guilt. Well, you were thoughtful because you were programming your subconscious mind to do it.
That's right. That's right. And there's something else that I've noticed too, and it's related to how I talk to myself. And that's our biggest enemy, right? Is the inner critic on the inside.
Right.
And because I've been, instead of poisoning my mind with those thoughts that just happened, that knee jerk, emphasis on the word jerk, the knee jerk thoughts that we have. And instead of that, I'm feeding myself a healthy diet every single day of language. And language is
Yeah.
so beautiful. I love playing with words and the way we choose the words that we put in our visualization. It makes a big difference, and I like to have my eyes closed when I hear it. I can do most of my yoga with my eyes closed, and it just makes a difference. It just totally makes a difference. And there's something else that's been different. I spend less money. I just spend less
Wow.
money. I do less spending as impulse, because the happiness doesn't come from the stuff that we have.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It's an everything. So so I'm spending less money. My credit card amounts are going down and down. I never carry a balance, but I'm just noticing that I don't spend as much, and it's all your fault.
Well, good. Good. Well, I think, like I alluded to earlier, my life changed once I understood how the human mind works. And could I explain that to your audience?
Yes, please do.
So this is amazingly simple. The conscious mind sets your intention and is influenced by logic. Subconscious mind controls your everyday thoughts and ongoing actions, and it's only influenced by repetition. And as an example of this, let's say you want to lose weight. Well, the decision to lose weight was made by the conscious mind based on the logic of the health benefits, right? Well, the reason people fail to lose weight is not from lack of intention, it's from lack of influencing their actions relative to losing weight. They're eating and they're exercising. And that's the main thing. Once I understood that and I realized, oh, 95% of my daily thoughts and actions are unconscious, therefore my subconscious mind actually controls my life. Once I got that through my thick head, I'm like, oh, I see how to play the game of life. All you got to do is influence that subconscious mind, since it's controlling 95% of your thoughts and actions. And not only is it making you take the right actions automatically, but it's also making you feel better about your life, because the mind thrives on order. And when you're feeding the succinct articulation of your life to yourself, it creates immense order and an immense sense of control over your life. And so, you're getting that dual benefit of the right actions happening automatically, but it's also reaffirming your identity and creating order in who you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And just for those of you who are watching as opposed to just listening, this is what it looks like. It's a daily calendar thing that I really resisted it. I said, no, 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 John, I'm not going to do it that way because I'm like a computer person and I don't need your stupid handwriting system. You're like, no, Julie, put on your big girl pants because this is how you do it. And every day I do it. And you know what? I closed my office at 3:30 today. And in the old days, I would just sort of get caught up, and it would be 5 or 6 before I would turn off my computer. But I know what I got to do. I put the most important things at the top, and the things that didn't get to happen, I'll put them on the next day. But it's just having a system that I've been able to integrate into my life, and it's been reliable. So it's really been a good thing. So if people are intrigued, and it's not just about making money, of course. If people have business goals and professional goals, it works beautifully. But also putting ourselves in the right mindset to achieve our personal goals in the realm of dating. If we're telling ourselves a bunch of negative hoo-ha, we are not going to achieve our dating goals. So this kind of a system can work quite well also for personal.
Right, right. Well, think about this. Your subconscious mind is either your greatest asset or your greatest nemesis in life. Because if you do nothing to influence the subconscious mind, then when your eyes open every morning, you're innately steered to being fear based and reactive. And it's a lousy way to live. I mean, I lived that way for too many years. And alternatively, you can make your subconscious mind your greatest asset, because then it makes the right actions happen automatically. And what you showed everybody was the part of the system is a simple daily and weekly to-do system. And I see that being successful comes down to being highly organized. You got to be growing consistently. You got to set aside time to deep think a couple times a week. You got to focus on what moves the needle. All those things you can make happen automatically without thinking, if you feed that to yourself each day.
Well, I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it works beautifully. So if people want to work with you, if they want to learn your system, and tell us about the book that's coming out, tell us how people can find you and work with you.
Well, they can go to www.themissingsecret.org, themissingsecret.org. And, the book actually launches next week. So by the time this airs, it'll be launched. And they can learn the methodology from just reading the book. And one of the one of the cool things, I don't know that I even have told you about this, but last year I created an AI algorithm where all a person has to do is answer 40 to 50 questions, and I give an example of how to answer each question, and they can use ChatGPT to help with the answer. But they answer those 40 or 50 questions, press a button, and in 10 seconds, my template is customized to your unique life.
I
And
used it. I used it, and it was amazing.
me,
It was one of the first times that I've used Chat GPT AI, And I was amazed. I needed to make something shorter and smaller
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just made it so yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and it saved me a lot of time, in doing my second version and my third version of my template.
Well, you know what I find with people is it's one thing to say to them, listen, the secret of the top book in the world on success is creating the succinct articulation of your life and feeding it to yourself each day. People go, huh, that's pretty interesting. But then the second part is they go, well, wow, I got to create this clarity about my life. And that seems very daunting. Well, you know, I've spent 20 years of my life understanding what clarity in each area of my life is, and it's dialed into the template. So they don't have to know what it is; they just got to answer the questions, and it creates that clarity automatically.
It's amazing. I really like it. So you've made it easier for people to create their templates. So the name of the book is The Missing Secret.
The missing secret, of the legendary book Think and Grow Rich. And I've got a special gift for your audience. I created a 9-minute video that explains the full secret of Think and Grow Rich and the science behind it. It's free to your audience. All you got to do is just email me at john@thinkitbeit.com. And so I think for people that this is interesting to, which I think most people will find this interesting, and some of them will find it life changing. But you know, just email me, and I'll be glad to send it to you.
John@thinkitbeit.com. Very good. All right. And a bunch of people, whatever you gave them last time, a bunch of people just jumped right in. And I'm hearing beautiful stories from people about how they've changed significant behaviors. And it comes from our thought patterns and how we're rewiring our subconscious. And it actually can happen. So it's beautiful. Thanks for doing this for us.
Hey, my pleasure. My pleasure.
I'll see you and next time I'm in Austin. I got to meet Ginger, and I really appreciate your time, John. I love what you're up to, and I just had to share you with my people.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, folks, jump in on this, have some fun with it, and apply all of this to your love life and your process of doing dating well, and it will serve you. I promise. So, you go out there and transform me to we for yourself. Thanks for being here.